thing with these people that live over 100 centenarians, right?
Yeah.
So do my responses go more toward long life, which has nothing to do with, not nothing, but it doesn't have as, say what?
You mean it doesn't have anything to do with financial independence?
Well, exactly. It doesn't have a lot to do with financial independence because of what they do. And even those who don't have money, they share what they have in the community with each other.
Yeah.
Or do you want me to focus more on the financial financial, which word are you using?
Independence.
Financial independence. So I know how to respond.
Well, which would you more enjoy talking about? So far, when I've been speaking to people, we've primarily been talking about, well, I mean, all around the theme of having a comfortable, happy retirement or later years, if you, not necessarily retirement, but as we age. You know, I was researching, I went online to look for ideas about people. This is how this all began, is I went online to research ideas about how people become financially independent, you know, ideas and thoughts and stuff like that. And I found all this stuff about this FIRE movement, you know, financial independence, early retirement. And I said, well, it's too late for me to retire early, right? I can't call it early retirement. So I just thought financial independence, long life, because I want to be happy and healthy and enjoy my life, not just be old, you know, at a certain point. So that's kind of the way they come together, is just you know, as probably specifically baby boomers age, how we're going to kind of create that lifestyle where we don't have to work at Walmart being a greeter because we can't afford to pay our bills. And we're not also, you know, sitting watching television 24/7 because we don't have the energy and the, you know, stamina to go out and do things. So it's quality of life, you know.
Okay, I'm good. Let me get a document. Hold on a second. Let me turn off this machine. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
So one of the things she said to me is, I basically want my work to speak for. On the first part.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I mean, we could talk about the longevity, but let's focus on the first part, the financial part. So I just went and got a copy of my survey so that I can speak from the survey. So I'm ready when you're ready.
Okay, so the first question I have for you, which is a question, is how do you want me to introduce you? I mean, you have a lot of hats.
I don't know. Did we send you a bio?
I don't believe so. I didn't see one.
Did you ask the people that set it up if they would send you a copy of my bio?
Yeah, I'll do that.
You did?
No,
Oh,
I will.
will.
I will.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll ask
All right.
Michelle to send me off.
Yeah, that's the best thing. I mean,
okay.
Self-grandizing I can do. It wouldn't be pretty though.
So the main reason that I wanted to speak to you is because I feel like you are the embodiment of the whole get your fill lifestyle. That you have those qualities, you know, you're not in any danger of becoming a Walmart greeter. You're, you know, it seems like every time I see you, you're taking on more things and getting more, you know, fired up about something. And
Okay. Okay.
Am I misunderstanding you?
Well, no, I think what happens though, Chris, and we kind of may have talked about this a little bit, and that is it's a goal we set. It's just like right now we're talking about setting goals for the future. So it's not a goal I set yesterday or a year ago, or even 10 years ago, or even 20 years ago. It's a goal I set starting with a small itty bitty financial goal that now has lived on for 40 years. So, you know, that's why when you see anything that I do, it's not like it's a heavy lift, because many of these balls have been up in the air, like I said, for 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And I'm able to see actually the power of the compounding from a $20 bill or a $50 bill every month.
Yeah.
Just because of the time. So, and in a flash, as we know, with everything with the market, it could, half of it or all of it can go away. But learning how does not go away.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of what you're talking about has to do with mindset shifts. Yeah. So that's my story in a long story short, in terms of what I do and how I do. I mean, what I do and how. It's like what we did last night. It was an hour. Mm-hmm. Oh, 45 minutes. Oh, good 30 minutes, right? But if you take 30 minutes, if I'm by myself and I invest that 30 minutes, I'm not going to do a lot. But the two of us, even last night, even though there are four of us in our group, but even with two of us, you and I lifted a little bit more together than we would have by ourselves.
Yeah.
And so even with the idea, now my task today is to call CVS to get my homework done. But even with the reading of the articles and just dialoguing about the debt and the idea of the debt, imagine if we did a little every week, 4 times a month, times 12, times 40. Mm-hmm. What would it look like?
Right.
And that's why I believe that when the guy came and talked with us from the Save guy, I forget his name now, the one that wrote the book, Give and Save.
Oh.
Save and Give, or whatever.
Yeah.
One of the things he encouraged us to do, he said, you know, if you just read an article a week, and really that is empowering. We do it with books. So that to me, again, is the education side. I read something by Emerson last night that was so empowering. He said, I immediately learned much about a speaker. No, I immediately learned much about a speaker through the poverty or splendor of his speech. I immediately learned much about a speaker through the poverty or splendor of his speech. Yeah. And to me, that relates to reading. Yeah. And so going to your podcast and the education of the financial empowerment as we age, for me, ties back to what are we reading
Yeah.
to impact that?
Yeah.
Because if we're reading something long enough and focused enough, eventually it would shift our thinking to do something and take action.
Yeah.
So for me, that's you know, that's where the survey comes from. That's all you see. I wish I was that smart to know what I'm doing, but I just keep doing a little bit.
Yeah.
Just
So
keep doing a little bit.
what's your advice to people who haven't started 40 years ago? People who are already sort of, I mean,
Read something.
Yeah.
Honestly, Chris, first they have to have a desire, and I go back to the book Think and Grow Rich with the Socratic questions about how much, doing what, by when, you know, the who, what, when, where, why, and how of your finances. Because if we don't ask those questions, we're not going to answer them.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't answer the questions, we're not going to take action. If we don't take action, we're not going to have any kind of positive results in terms of what we'd like to see and be at a certain point, a certain age in our lives. So I think it's never too late. David Bach wrote a book entitled Start Late, Finish Rich. And Start Late, Finish Rich. And he took a person who was over 50 and put her on a plan to amass $1 million. Now it's a combination of things, but I don't think it's ever too late to start. And again, I think also that you're talking about a better quality of life, and it may relate to finances, or it might relate to a balance between the quality of the life and what we do in it. For example, stress kills. You can be a millionaire, financially free, but filled with stress. So I think that there's a balance between the quality of life, and then you can be penniless and just as happy into old age.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier, we were talking about the preparation for the show, and I talked about one of the books I'm reading called, it's a Japanese word, and it's spelled Ikigai, Ikigai. I might be pronouncing it incorrectly, but it's a research that was done on what they call the blue zones. And these are centurions, people who are over 100, and they found that they are concentrated in about 4 or 5 different countries. And the one that has the most people living the longest and the largest number have certain qualities. One of the qualities is that they eat small meals. Another quality is that they have community. They do a little exercise every day, even if it's nothing but gardening or walking. And they tend to have a major something to live for. A passion, a vision, a purpose, family, goals, dreams, but just a little something that really encourages them to make it through another day. And these days have all added up over 100 of those, and they don't see it ending. And one of the other things that was interesting is that they may drink a little wine, and they live a stress-less life. In other words, they let stuff just roll right off of them. They don't take much to heart and get bogged down with a lot of the nuances of life, the heavy lifting things. So money is important. And for this group of people, what they found is that because they're so focused on community, they do like a community pot for money, some of them. Mm-hmm. and they each put in a little bit. And if somebody is in need and cannot pay a particular bill or something, they go to that pot and they get the money out.
So
right?
that's enough to relieve the
So
stress of the.
absolutely, absolutely. And they help each other out. They do a lot of things together. But those are some of the things that we can focus on in addition to the money, in terms of when you talk about a better quality of life as we age.
You brought up the book, and I wanted to talk about that anyway, about your International Mastermind Association and the book Think and Grow Rich, and how that has impacted your life.
Okay, what's the question?
Well, talk about how you found the book, or how it found you.
I think that's a very good question. It's a very different question in terms of how did it find me, because I think oftentimes what we're looking for and what we're seeking is seeking us. What we're seeking is seeking us. And this is why it's so very important to stay positive in our thinking, if you will. But I had a desire for many years growing up for a better quality of life. I just did not know what it looked like. And I was blessed with the book out of a situation where I was working a lot of hours and had to go to the doctor for it, but I was about to develop ulcers. The doctor, realizing it was stress related, prescribed The Power of Positive Thinking and also Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and a couple of other books. So at 9 p.m., December 31st, 1979, I decided to start the reading of this book when my husband and friends went to celebrate the new year. And in the first couple of chapters, I realized that as I was reading the book, it began to read me. And the reading of me in the book the author asked me these questions, which I, of course, every week live by these, even now, many years later. And the first one he asked was, how much money do you want? The second question was, what do you intend to do in return for the money? Third question was, by what date? The fourth question was, what's your plan? And the fifth step, he asked to write a statement, affirmation statement. And the sixth step was to take that statement and repeat it twice a day. As I began to work through that process, I realized that even though I wanted to save $1,000 in a year, I could not until I dealt with the fact that I was so deeply in debt as a young person with no way of getting out, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, a lot of credit cards, and not really dealing with the money issue, or really not dealing with the lack of understanding, not only how to make money, but how to make money. And that began my journey in 79. And now here we are in 2019. I'm still on the journey. So I went from the $1,000 to save once a year, which took me probably I really want to say 5 to 7 years before I could save that $1,000, because I had to get out of debt. And when I did the research to find out, did not have a lot of personal debt. I had a lot of property that people were not paying the mortgage, were not paying the rent. And I was not dealing with the fact of evictions and what I needed to do to get them out. I just continued to pay the rent. I pay the mortgage on the properties. And that is what really caused me to be in the financial situation. So oftentimes, when we look at our financial situation, it's not always what we think it is until we make a commitment to reduce it to paper and look at it for what it is. And when I did that for myself, because I wrote out a Excel spreadsheet by hand. This was before computers and Excel, right? And I just did one of those trial balance sheet by hand, where you just write the columns, date, payee, amount, then across the top where you spent the money. And I was really frugal for myself. I had no real personal debt other than mortgages.
Yeah.
And every so many, months or so, I bought a piece of property and I was carrying the debt on those properties. So, and also being a young person, not being familiar with the eviction process and the laws, and just trying to be nice. People stay there for years if you let them, and they did. And for me, commuting back and forth and not dealing with the fact that, wait now, even if I went through the courts and put this person out, they're legally evicted, versus taking their stories. Oh, I'm going to pay you. Oh, the cat ate the money, the dog ran off, I got to find, all those stories that they come up with, and they're all very good, but I'm still responsible for this mortgage.
Right.
So took me years to get that under control, to either sell the property or evict it, whatever it was, but at the same time continuing to learn how to earn. And that was the beginning of my journey. And so now my desire really is, I went from $1,000 a year, took me years to do that, to learning how to make the money, and then learning how to make the money make money. And my goal went from $1,000 a year to save to $1,000 a month to save to $1,000 a week to save. And I would really, what I did differently in my affirmation, I just changed one word, and the word is passive.
Yeah.
So I stopped from trying to make the amount of money from $1,000 to $5,000 to $10,000 to $15,000, $20,000 a month, to just changing that one word to say, I would have in my possession X number of dollars, passive. And when I added the word passive, everything in my mind shifted. Everything in my daily activities had to shift to begin to focus more on passive income than trading time for dollars. And I think that that's one of the keys, going to your point about having a better quality of life later in life, has to do with, if I wake up at 92, whether I am in a home or my children take me home with them, will I have the financial wherewithal to have created a passive income where I do not have to go out and work?
Yeah.
So that's where it is.
Why do you think we are not already, with the tools, there are books everywhere, it's not a secret, but why do you think we are not all, in that place? Why aren't we all financially free?
First of all, I think it's not a desire or a goal. It has to start with a desire. Some people do not desire to have that kind of money. Some people may desire it, but they're not willing to do the work because it's work, and the work is more internal than external. And I think thirdly, oftentimes, we choose a craft, and that craft may not generate the lifestyle we choose.
Mm-hmm.
They don't mix, they don't match.
Mm-hmm.
The lifestyle is here, the craft is here in terms of the income.
Yeah. Uh-oh. I can't hear you anymore, Ann. I can't hear you anymore, Ann. I can't hear you. Ann, wait, I can't hear you anymore. I can't hear you anymore.
Having a desire.
Okay.
Having a desire. And I would say starting with the desire to start small at first. Bless you. To start small at first. When I first started investing, I started with a $20 bill once a month, and then to go to once a week. But at the same time, I did not wait until I felt like I was in a financial situation to start saving. And then I had to learn how to start investing, which I thought for years they were the same, only to find out it's not the same. So again, that goes back to the education that's required to learn how to save. David Block, again, wrote a really good book entitled The Automatic Millionaire, where he coined a phrase called the Latte Factor. And he said in his book that we could amass a six-figure income by just taking the money we buy a Starbucks cup of coffee and a snack once a day. That Starbucks coffee and that snack is going to run you at least $10 per trip. So if we took one day and did not make that investment, that's $10 in a week. Times 4 weeks, that's $40 in a month. Times 52 weeks. That small amount of money invested in something that we know, like, and trust, product, company, over a long period of time could generate a 5 or 6 figure income passively. So that to me is how, someone can begin very small.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you did is key, where you made your spreadsheet and wrote down where all the money was going. Because until you see that, you just imagine that you're saving. You imagine that you're
because what happens oftentimes is that we're going around in circles in our head. And that's why I stick so much and focus so much on the book Think and Grow Rich. And I keep coming back to it because the principles don't get old. I get old with the principles, but the principles don't get old, And so when you look at question number 1, it can change. Question number 2 can change. The answer can change.
Right.
And that's what I have done. Actually, I had a meeting with my team before I came on this recording for today. And that's what we went over as a team. So I was able to take what I do for my life and every business that I'm involved in and every organization that I'm involved in. I look to see, how do we use the same principles? They're not broken. How do we use the same principles to set the goals, to set that date, to set the affirmation and the strategy? And you think about our investment club, that's what we've done. We set a number, whether that's a number of meetings, or whether that's a number of dollars, or whether that's a number or in the portfolio, whatever it is. Like one of the articles we read in the Better Investing Magazine Repair Shop talked about an average number. If you have 10 people in your club, each person holds 2 stocks, a minimum, and totally responsible for those. So 22 stocks is manageable in a portfolio. Now, if we take that for an individual with a life, you start with 1 or 2 stocks and you get that under control. Now, you take the spreadsheet, going back to the spreadsheet, if we take what's in our head and we reduce it to paper, even if it takes months to really get our arm around the total portfolio picture. That's why I like the software that we use inside of iClub and these different places. But back then we didn't have that. So for me to really look at my situation and keep looking at it. So once I laid that out and I identified the debt, I took the smallest debt and I set a goal for myself to wipe it out. Then I set a goal for myself to create a business idea that would generate a small amount of money along with my job to wipe out the debt. And along with that, save a little. And along with that, invest a little. So I was able to go from the $20 to the $50 to $100 to $1,000 in terms of saving and investing on a regular basis. So again, going back to the question about people who start late, it still becomes a matter of who we decide to become, because the work is still inside of us to make that shift and mindset shift.
Yeah. I was talking with Lisa Jeffries last week, who you introduced me to. Thank you very much. We had a great talk. And
Good.
she was saying that she thinks her personal barrier, and that what she sees a lot with her folks that she works with, is a fear, and that sort of like rich is evil type of mindset that we somehow absorb from society. That, you know, the bad guys are the ones who are driving around in the limousines or whatnot. And, you know, do you think, and even I know that I've heard in our mastermind group, people bristling a little bit or feeling a little bit uncomfortable around the words Think and Grow Rich, you know, like, oh, well, you hear people say this, I'm sure you do too. I don't need to be rich. I don't really need that much money, you know, whatever. What can we do? I mean, first of all, do you see this? Do you kind of know where I'm coming from on this? And what can we do to sort of change that programming?
You know, when I tell people, when I'm coaching or speaking or just in a conversation and I get that response, I encourage people to learn how to make the money and then give it away. Mm-hmm. It's not always about the money, it's who and what we become in the process of the learning, in the process of the experience, in the process of the journey. Yeah. So it's not always about the money.
No, you're right.
Especially if you didn't earn it. You see.
Right. Well, I think that's part of the mindset as well, right? We have to work really hard if we want to make this money. I didn't earn it.
Everybody's not willing, and they use that as an scapegoat response.
Yeah.
Not everybody, but again, learn to make the money and then give it away.
Yeah. Tell me how you first got introduced to the idea of investment club.
The investment club idea actually came out of a book called The Millionaire Next Door. Mm-hmm. As a part of the Think and Grow Rich process, we started an organization called the International Mastermind Association. And in that organization, we focus on 10 areas of our lives. We focus on the spiritual, family, financial, education, health, personal development, business or careers, recreation, civic, and creativity. And we set goals for 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. And I have goals I'm working on that goes out to 40 years in the future. And we read a little something in every one of those areas. So as a group of 10, when we started out, one of us read the book, was introduced to the book in the financial area entitled The Millionaire Next Door. Collectively, we all read the book, and we came upon a section in the book that talked about this group of ladies who were in an investment club, and the club was called Beerstown Ladies, and they were in their 70s and 80s, and they had beat the stock market prior to writing this, being a part of this book. And they were members of an organization at that time called the National Association of Investors Corporation. And we decided that if they could do it, we could too. And we decided to contact the organization and start an investment club. Now, the interesting part of this story is that when we decided to go to our first, we had our first experience at one of the meetings. We were having a meeting for our mastermind group, and as we were leaving this particular Marriott hotel, we were on the second floor, this organization coincidentally, which I don't really believe in coincidence, I believe it was inspired by the universe. As we're leaving the hotel, we walked by the National Association of Investors Corporation, NAIC, local chapter was having their annual meeting in the same hotel. And as we walked by, we all looked at each other and said, oh my gosh, that's the same group we're studying about. It was on a Saturday afternoon about 2, 3 o'clock, and we decided to ease in the back and take a seat. Only the Spirit of God would have my, at the time, 7-year-old daughter with me, sitting in the back, and kept saying to me, Mommy, I know that man on the stage. Mommy, I know that man on the stage. And I kept trying to get her to be quiet. She said, no, Mommy, I believe I know that man on the stage. And come to find out, when the program was over, the man on the stage was my next door neighbor, Ellis Traub, and he is the guy that created the software called Toolkit. Yes, ma'am. And the rest is her story. And the rest is our investment story. And we connected with him and became involved with this awesome organization. And even now today, we're still involved now as volunteers.
Yeah.
So that's how our investment experience started.
How many investment clubs have you been involved with starting since then? Do you have any idea?
Probably about 15 to 20. 15 to 20 over a long period of time. Yeah, over 20 years. So that averages out 1 a year. It's not bad. Yeah. But I think that the one we're all in right now is probably going to set the stage for a lot to come. And interestingly, in my journaling and meditating time this morning, I realized, and I wrote some ideas, that one of the reasons I think our current investment club will do well and will outlive many of us is because it's tied to an organization where people already know each other. And over time, I would like to see us take this concept to another level, because I am believing that as we grow in understanding how to do virtual clubs, that the concept will resonate with other associations. And actually, we're starting one here in my office. One of the ladies came to me and said, could we start a company club? So she's going to take that task on. And I gave her our good, bad, and the ugly about what it really takes. And they're already starting off not on a good foot because they didn't go to the meeting last Saturday. But again, the point is that I believe because of technology now, it is easier for groups who are already together to start a club and stay together. And it's easier for them to meet online or geographically in person because they have that one thing in common. So, yeah, that's what I think that's going to be the future of investment clubs.
So you've talked about your real estate investing, starting that off at a young age, and now starting and getting involved in the stock market. What do you feel? Do you have a preference as far as investing goes, especially for people who are trying to build wealth kind of quickly because they're getting older?
I don't think it's a good idea to try to build wealth quickly. I think you try to build it quickly, you lose it quickly. Mm-hmm. I think we take good money and we throw it after bad. And I think oftentimes we make unwise decisions versus looking at where do we want to be financially? And then what does it take to get there? Because oftentimes it just really could be a matter of doing less. I read a book entitled Live Rich, Die Broke. live rich, die broke. And interestingly, one of the things that God talked about was divesting everything you own before you leave the earth. And when we study logotherapy, logo, it's not therapy, but it has to do with long life. You will also find that there are people who are well-to-do and health issues wipes out everything. So when you talk about money and a better quality of life, it really extends past finances. And being educated to know, for example, if you have certain assets and you're going to get Medicaid and Medicare, do you qualify? Maybe you might need to divest yourself of some things to be able to qualify. Because at a certain age, did you earn all that money to give it away on health issues? Versus being able to be financially at the level, not too high, but just up underneath the bar that you can qualify for health insurance. This is a total conversation, which is one of the reasons why, as a part of our International Mastermind Association, we don't just focus on the money. We focus on the total person, the total life, because we could get to that point to find out, what was it all for? That's another book called Ecclesiastics.
You've alluded a little bit to the International Mastermind Association. Was that what you started with, the 10 people originally?
Yes, that's what we started with the 10 people from the book, Think and Grow Rich, and the chapter on the mastermind concept. Mm-hmm. So we started out with 10 people, and those 10 people, once we became involved with the idea of investing, we each decided to get one more person, which gave us 20. Mm-hmm. And that's how we started the investment club. And at the same time, we went from that 20 to looking at how do we share the Think and Grow Rich concept with other friends and families. And from there, we ended up starting the international organization, which came up with the systems and processes of how do you actually start an effective and successful mastermind group.
And many people would have just been satisfied to say, okay, we've got this great group of 20 people. But I think you just sort of, because it's your personality, it's the way your mind works, you said, I'm going to just take this to the next level and turn it into a podcast and turn it into a retreat. And
I don't think that all of that doesn't come at the same time. I think it's slow in the spirit of service. But what I'm also learning, though, Chris, is people don't respect that which they do not pay for. People do not respect that which they do not pay for. So we had an organization giving information away for free. People didn't respect it. Mm-hmm. Then we charged a little. People did not respect that. But it's interesting how when they pay, we all, and I myself included, when we pay more, we tend to not always do more, but we tend to take it a little bit more seriously, as if it has greater value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
so, yeah.
I guess that's human nature.
Yes. Yes, I would agree. Yes. When you first got that book, Think and Grow Rich, what did your life look like? What were you doing at that time? I had a corporate job, family, friends, but felt like I was experiencing a wilderness experience, just kind of going around in circles, not really clear. I mean, you do what your parents say, go to school, get a good education, get a good corporate job. We do that. And then what?
Yeah.
But I knew that there was more to life, in life, for life. I just did not know how to assess it. And the values were different. My values then were probably more money focused.
Mm-hmm.
Now my values are more quality of life focused.
Mm-hmm.
And so the decisions and the actions that I take and that I make is more in the spirit of service than being self-driven. So self-focused, yes.
Yeah. How did your corporate life evolve into working for yourself and speaking and being more entrepreneurial?
I think inch by inch, when I started with the process of the 6 steps again,
Mm-hmm.
and as I began to increase that amount of money and the need to make more, I had to look outside of my job.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried a number of different multi-level marketings. My favorite was the Amway Corporation, because it taught you how to build the man or woman, and the man or woman would build the business. And I think that philosophy still exists today. For many of us that are in business, we focus on the business, but we don't focus on the man or woman in the business. And I contend that our business will grow no larger than our own self-image. And so as we desire to grow the self-image, then the business grows. And I go back to the Emerson quote about immediately we learn, how a person has lived as they speak based upon the poverty or success that they've had. And I keep going back to the whole idea of education. Just all centers around, and education does not have to be something that we think is only for the rich and or famous. It's something that's very subtle. And for me, the transition, the more I read, the more I grew.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I knew, the more I realized I did not know.
Yeah.
So there's always a desire to learn more, but also in the learning to niche, to be rich in a specific area, singularly at a time.
So focus.
So that's the question. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely focus. Yeah.
Interesting. So tell me about the retreats that you have. Is that in January when you have your international mastermind retreats?
Well, I have the International Mastermind Association. I don't call it a retreat. I call it an annual meeting for your life. And I like to suggest to people, just imagine we're all on a treadmill. And no matter if we walk or run, we're still standing still. So when do we get off the treadmill of life and really look at where we've come from to this point where we're standing, and also look out to where we're going and how we're going to get there?
Mm-hmm.
Then where is it written and documented, the process? So the annual meeting to me is like if you were to go before a tribunal, and that tribunal gets to determine, do you live another 365 based upon what you said and what you did the last 365? See, we just assume that we go into the new year every year as if it's a given, it's going to be better. But no, what did you say last year? And did you really do what you said you were going to do? What are you saying for the upcoming year that you're going to do? So, okay, hold on a second. Yolanda, actually track what you said and how successful or unsuccessful were you with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that to me is what we would be looking at every January at that annual meeting for IMA.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So with that being said, then it becomes a matter of what goals will you set for whatever it is you want to achieve. Now, these goals are not determined by other people. They're what we decide that we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so in January, we just ask people to bring them and be held accountable to what you said you were going to do. And we do that every year. And it's just been a phenomenal experience. Yeah, so it's a phenomenal experience. We've been doing it now long enough to see the children grow up in it and have them to share their experiences.
You know, this is a little bit of a detour, but I think we struggle. I think parents struggle trying to introduce their children to the concepts of, like, for example, the Think and Grow Rich concepts. I'd like to, you know, introduce my nephew to that, but he's only 11, and I just don't know how to put it on his level so that he would get excited about it.
It's very, well, why does he need to be excited?
So he'll stick with it. So he'll get involved and do it.
I really know why. Of course. I mean, you think about, we make them eat vegetables. Is that exciting? We make them go to school. Is that really exciting? We make them take a bath. Is that exciting? We make them go to church and worship. Is that really exciting? So why should this be exciting or an option? It should not be an option.
Yeah.
It was not an option in our house. And I don't think they turned out too badly.
I think they did.
Well, what we did was we made it fun for all the kids. They had their own little small group, and they met once a week on Sundays on the phone for a few minutes to talk about what they read. It can be a page, it can be a paragraph. I do the same thing in my office with interns, and they hate me for it. And then when they leave my employment, 90+% eventually come back as they age and they say, thank you. Oh my gosh, I did not know. Now I've started having them come back in our annual meeting, and I'm going backwards now to find them from 5, 10, 20 years ago and have them come and share with each other. It's phenomenal. Mm-hmm. But we give too many choices, and we're given too many choices.
Yeah. And we might not even realize that the thing we should be choosing, people aren't necessarily even presenting that as
Absolutely.
an option. You have to find
Absolutely.
that on your own, right?
And see, that's how this call started. I think we have a responsibility. When you said to me, well, we're not taught. I used to believe and agree with that. I believe that I have the responsibility, because as soon as I say I'm not taught, somebody to do something for me, I then release my responsibility for myself and I give it into the hands of others. And the more of that I do, the more I will do of that. And then I become a victim of that society and that thinking, because now if they don't do for me or think for me, there's no reason for me to think for myself. So if I turn that conversely and say I am responsible, well, sometimes I'm not responsible, but I'm going to take responsibility for myself. Once I do that, I force myself to be accountable and responsible. And that really is the power in the accountability meeting we have in our small mastermind groups, to be accountable. You know, and it's not easy when you read the same information over and over. I'm a big Proverbs reader. I like reading a proverb a day. I don't always do it. And if I forget, I go back and I just only read whatever the date is. So today's date is the 8th. So I started last night to read the 8th chapter of Proverbs. I didn't get very far because oftentimes I can read a line or a verse, not even an entire chapter, before something resonates with me. And then my mind goes to wandering. My mind goes to thoughts and ideas and things that I can do. And I start jotting those things. I'm done. But if I forget, tomorrow, I don't go back and read the 9th. I pick it up wherever I am. If it's the 11th or 15th or 12th, I pick it up there. My point is, it is the rituals that we employ on a daily basis that goes back to the reading, even with Think and Grow Rich. Now, this is 40 some odd years, I'm still in the same book. And oftentimes I read something and as if I didn't see it before. So today, for our meeting today, I still have to finish my chapter. I did the one for the Mastermind. I'm finishing the one on sex transmutation. Mm-hmm. But I reread it.
And you see new things every time.
Every single time. Every single time. But what I also see and I look for, and this is what's different, are ideas. So when you ask me about the retreat and the this and the this and all these different things, they all come out of the reread. See, even though the information is the same, how I'm processing the information is what's different. So previously I had a newsletter. Now I have the blog, and I have the blog talk. Now I'm able to mix the blog talk and the newsletter together. That's an idea that came out of the book. We talked about specialized knowledge, and we talked about organization of materials and information. And I said, wow, this is what's called intentional congruence, where you take one thing and you repurpose it over a lot of different areas. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So that for me is how and why all of these things work together.
And thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry we went over a few minutes. But just one last question. Is there anything that you wish I would have asked you that I failed to ask? Anything that you want to share just in parting?
I really would like to encourage everybody who ends up listening to this. Join us every January, Saturday, first Saturday of the year, by going on to our website for the International Masterminders, so masterminders.org, and follow us and get involved. Because again, when you're talking about financial freedom, we're talking about as we age, what's different? I think that as we think, so are we. And the more we think, the more we become whatever that is. If we want to change where we're going, we'd have to start with changing the way we think. But the accountability is the key, Chris. Who's holding us accountable for these dreams and these goals as we age?
Yeah.
So, and if you don't have a place and you don't have someone, I would suggest whoever's listening to this, join us. And again, we're on the Blog Talk Show, International Masterminders. Just search Masterminders every Saturday. So there's always a way to connect with like-minded individuals who are going in the same direction for a better quality of life. I'd like to end with that.
Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day. See you tonight at the Mastermind.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Have a
Thanks,
good one.
Ann.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.